Okay, everybody, we've returned from our executive session. We're ready to start our study session with Dr. Nance. Oh, there we go.
Madam President, members of the board, I'm excited to present to you tonight an outline of the development of a portrait of a graduate for Chandler Unified School District. I'm going to use the term portrait of a graduate tonight, but please know as we move through this process, it may be changing. Some of the districts who have already processed and gone through the development have said they've kind of leaned away from the word graduate because people tend to assign that to secondary students, and we want this to be a pre-K through 12 initiative. So some other suggestions that are out there are portrait of a learner, portrait of student success, but we'll have the design team working on that as we process through. A little background on why we're looking at developing a portrait of a graduate is, first of all, we are developing our Future Ready Schools initiative, and the groundbreak foundation of this is personalized learning. And when we look at personalized learning, we need student choice, and we need to look at student needs. And one of the things we've realized is we may not be meeting all the needs that is necessary for our students in the future. As part of this process, we chose not to do this alone in Chandler. We're utilizing an outside facilitator, Battelle for Kids. It's a not-for-profit organization committed to collaborating with school systems and communicates to realize the power and promise of 21st century learning for every student. Part of the reason we're doing that is we felt we wanted a neutral facilitator because the development of this portrait will involve external stakeholders, internal stakeholders, and a lot of diverse opinions. We felt like a neutral facilitator who's experienced in this can help with that collaboration and make sure everybody's voice is heard at the table as we're developing this. In addition, Battelle for Kids has access to resources and collaboration with school districts across the nation that we can tap into. So I want to share with you a little bit of why we're looking at this. Oops. So in watching that video, a couple of things that came to mind. The first time we've seen it and we've worked with people who are showing us videos of future jobs, most of the people in the room said, "This is scary. Are we ready?" The second thing is we had posed to us from one of our facilitators that we've been working with, actually asked us the question and said, "We are 22 years into the 21st century. Have we changed anything we're doing with students currently?" And resoundingly, our answer we felt like was no. And so we really needed to take a personal reflection on, besides and outside of some of our academics, what are the skills that we're preparing our students for in the workforce? And if we can't prepare them for the jobs that haven't even been developed yet in our current model of our school system, what do we need to do to improve that? Otherwise, we're not being fair to our students and to the future industries that will need their support. So in looking at our current skills that we focus on, you'll see in the bottom left, those are our typical knowledge acquisition skills. So when we're looking at those, you're looking at like your reading, writing, math, your content area specialties. Following that, you're going to see some to the right that are some feedback skills that the university levels, the workplace, businesses have given that support some skills that they're needing in the workplace. Things like creativity, problem solving, self-motivation. We saw that a lot when things went virtual. Ability to cross cultures, so communicating with people in different countries, as well as that mediating, honesty, ethics portion of that. So we want to make sure that we're still teaching the content. That's important. We have our standards. We want them to meet. We want them to show mastery. We want them to be proficient when they leave us. But we also want to embed with those content skills the important knowledge of how to use them in the environment and workplace. So as we look at a portrait of a graduate, what we really are developing is a common vision that articulates our district's aspirations for all of our students. Now more than ever, our learning experiences must not only provide for rigorous academic content, but more intentional fostering of critical thinking, communication, collaboration, creativity, and other identifiable 21st century skills. Our students need to be prepared for a complex, changing world, and it's happening every day. They're probably more used to it than we are, to be honest. It's not going to surprise them as much. So as educational leaders, we need to ask ourselves several things. One, what are the hopes, aspirations, and dreams that our community have for our young people? Two, what are the skills and mindsets that our children need for success in this rapidly changing and complex world? And three, if we take those, what are the implications for learning experiences that we are providing in our school system? So we're going to take this to form our vision of a portrait of a graduate, and then we're going to use this portrait to lead us and guide us as a compass in incorporating experiences for our students along the way. Here's some examples. There are some districts that have already done this process. And as we look at them across the country, it's not enough to just develop this. We don't want this to just be like, hey, this is a really nice poster. We're going to put it up. We said we did it, and now what? It really didn't impact the changes our students had. It didn't change the experiences they had. But the nice thing about developing this portrait is it is very community-based. And then you can see these are 3 examples that different districts across the nation had. And they've developed different skill sets that they felt they valued in their community. Anything like critical thinking, growth and grit, adaptability are some of the examples that are listed up there. So as we move through this process, you're going to hear a lot. It's locally developed, but globally positioned. That's what we want it to be input from our stakeholders. So when we're looking at this, we actually have a group of 100 people that we are gathering together They're going to be in-district, out-of-district stakeholders. So you'll see some of the examples listed above. We have faith communities, we have business, organizational leaders, we have higher education, so our universities or community colleges, social service agencies, policymakers, students. We look at students in grades 6 through 12 to participate, educators. Along with educators, we are putting in some of our support staff as well. Families, so we have our parents represented, school leaders and district leaders and governing board. As we put them together, we're going to be looking at 40 external stakeholders, 40 internal stakeholders, and 20 students. That's a recommended ratio that we, when working with Battelle for Kids, that 40%, 40%, 20%. In there as well with our students, we're hoping to have identified a few alumni who have actually gone up through our system, as well as working with businesses and organizations and parents that are part of our current system, so they do have some exposure to the school setting, and then also what skill sets they would need. We're looking for diverse perspectives, as you can see by this group up here. We want different ideas, we want different collaboration, and we want them to be able to contribute to what our students' needs are. Our timeline for this is a 4-month window, and we'll be sharing our progress along the way, but this is what it looks like. There's going to be 4 meetings that take place. The first will be held in February. At this meeting, again, we have our trained facilitators that will be taking place, but the first meeting is outlining the why. Why are we doing this? What's the background of how the world has changed? What implications does that change have upon our own students? Then we'll meet again in March, and that's where we start narrowing down and identifying essential skills and competencies that students will need to thrive in the future. Then after identifying, we're going to be looking for 7 in common themes there. Then in April, we're going to come back and we're going to take those skills that have been identified and we're going to conceptualize them, what they look like. So we have common language, common vision. If I say communication, what does that look like for a 12th grader versus a kindergartner? And then making sure that we all have the same vision of that definition of communication with it. So spending some time on the terminology and what it looks like and that shared vision for the skills. Then we come back in May and put it all together. We'll be creating a visual aspect, like you saw some examples prior. And then we take on the what next? What's the next steps in creating this into a reality and not just the vision? So when we come back from the what's next, that's where we're going to be tapping on our curriculum and instruction team. We have access to develop rubrics and expectations of what these skills will look like across our different grade levels, pre-K-12. As we look on it, we want to ensure that these skills are being embedded into the learning experiences that take place into the classroom, and then also develop ways that teachers can monitor that, hey, this skill has been taught. What's a strength? What do I need to work on with a particular student? Maybe it's problem solving, so what's a different aspect, or what content, design, or lessons can be utilized that increase the experiences the kids have at developing these skills. So that assessment is very important. We also have access to collaboration with districts across the country who already have some rubrics and skills developed that we don't have to start it from scratch unless we need to. If we come up with something different from everybody else, we will. But otherwise, we have some baselines that we can make and tweak and fit what Chandler wanted for their graduate. And finally, as we're developing these skills, we want them to be cross-transferable across the 3 E's. And when we look at the 3 E's, we're talking about students who choose to be enrolled in higher level education. Then we have students who maybe college isn't the right fit for them and they want to go directly into employment. Or then we also have a 3rd E if some of our students go right into the military or enlistment. So we don't want to only focus on these skills would only apply if I'm going to the collegiate level. We want the 7 skills that are identified to actually be transferable into all 3 of these choices, whichever path one of our students may take. We will be coming back to you following, we'll have some progress notes along the way, and then we'll be coming back to you with the final product. And then again, as these rubrics and skill sets are being developed, they will be shared out not only with the governing board, but also the community as well. And then I'd like to open it up to you with questions.
Thank you so much for sharing this. And I love the last slide because immediately in my head, when we see school districts include students in things, it's oftentimes the high school kids who are in student council, AP classes, and that'd be wonderful to hit all three of those clusters of students who may not be the ones volunteering for 42 different clubs, and the ones that are just kind of under the radar, if we could grab some of those kids too, because sometimes they have a different perspective that's super valuable on how to make this meaningful for the kids who maybe are going to, like you said, go and enlist or are going to go directly into industry. Thank you.
Okay, so I love this. And I love the fact that there are other schools that are doing this and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. But my question is, we bring things in with programming and then we Chandlerize it and make it applicable to our students. But my fear is that when we meet things that challenge us and we get uncomfortable with, we throw it out and it could be useful. So how do we determine what we throw out and what we keep and what's good for challenging us so that we can challenge our students to meet these goals better, if that makes sense?
Mm-hmm. So you're talking about after the skills have been developed and now we're implementing them?
Yeah.
We would take that back with our curriculum and instruction team and give that to them. I think as we're looking at these future-ready skills, we have to be open to challenge ourselves. If we stick with the status quo, we're still in the industrialized, education, not revolution, sorry, education. We need to think broader, and sometimes as adults where we're not living in that future that's going to hit us with all these changes, we get comfortable and it's unfamiliar. So I think ensuring that our staff are trained on how to challenge them, how to think out of the box, how to create these experiences. So I think it's going to be a combination of PD and curriculum that will get us there, but also including the targets. I think the other support is, because this is a foundation of our future-ready schools, there are a lot of cogs that work within that that are going to be also supporting these implementations in technology, in community relations, in leadership skills. And so they won't be forgotten, they're going to be embedded.
Dr. Nance, if I can also add, if you remember our future ready work that we started at the end of last year, end of last year, in the core of it is personalized learning. So how do we personalize our learning for students? And although other states have done this work and other districts have, they're all different. So what we get from our community piece will be a value. Those 7 that we come up with, maybe it's problem solving, right? One of them might be problem solving skills. This just starts the work. So after these 4 sessions, when we define what it is for it to be a Chandler graduate, and those 7 core beliefs of what skills we should be developing in them, then we got to define what happens in preschool, kindergarten. So how do we problem solve in kindergarten? How do we provide those opportunities for kids to become problem solvers? So we teach those, but they also then become innate. In every year they bring that forward. So by the time we get through 8th grade and 7th grade, we should have teachers saying, my kids don't know how to problem solve. They've been problem solvers since preschool. And then that would be the beauty of it. So there is one big piece, which is it needs to be Chandlerized, right? And ours will probably be different than Mesa's and different than Colorado's or New York's work that they've done with them. And that's a good thing, right? So, because what this process respects is the input and the value. We're going to have to challenge ourselves to be able to make sure that we're consistent in our practices and that we hold accountable that every grade level, our kids are getting some of it, of each of the 7 so that we can move them forward. And there may be some that they don't get until the older grades, but that's going to be the work that we have to work with the CIA team and really assess when do these come in, and when are they best to be implemented developmentally, and when are the kids able to showcase and be able to display that too? But you're right, we have to challenge ourselves to say we have our core competencies that we have to do, a rigorous curriculum. That doesn't go away. This is on top of that, so we have a citizen and a student that is ready to be prepared, so.
Yeah, and I think that we kind of get stuck in doing things because it's the way that it's always been done. And it sounds like this model really challenges that. But a lot of this, as you said, can be pretty scary, right? Like, it's scary for an educator to see a video like that and, oh, they have AI teachers now. You know, there was one up there about AI therapists. I was offended.
But someone's got to be coding them, right? And helping them teach that therapist. It is scary because the number one thing people think is my job's going to be gone.
Yeah, and so I think those are the things that I'm kind of worried about too, in terms of like, what's our plan for helping people overcome that fear and overcome those challenges and those brick walls, in terms of like, I don't want to do it, I'm stuck because this is the way that we've always done it, and I don't want to make myself obsolete.
And I just want to clarify, the CIA team is not like a spy organization. It's curriculum, instruction, and assessment.
Thank you, Dr. Nance. I was just going to clarify that, but I also wanted to clarify in the video, those things are happening now. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So imagine our preschool students that are sitting in our classrooms right now, they're going to be leaving. When they leave, that's going to be obsolete.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to track down that AI therapist and kill it.
The robot dog was really neat. If it could help me remember all my passwords, it'd be really awesome.
It was not neat. It was like Fahrenheit 451 hounds. I'm sorry, not neat. No.
All right. Do we have
Gary.
Joel or Barb on the? Yes, sir, Mr. Orrs. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just curious about the trades, you know, the electricians, the plumbers, the HVAC guys, masonry, all that stuff. None of this stuff is going to happen without those people. Where do they fit in here? Because they always seem to get like second consideration. But those are really good jobs and are absolutely essential for moving forward, particularly with the infrastructure that we need to rebuild. So is that part of this program explicitly?
Yeah, we are actually, working with our CTE and trades and internships on how we can provide opportunities to learn these skills as well. But that's where that transferable comes across. We know not everyone is going to be, there's a lot of them who want the trades and still need the trades. And even though there's going to be some experiences that may involve more technology, we still have other departments that they may have to work globally as an electrician with someone else, even though they're still hands-on. So how do we prepare those skills? So yes, we would be including them as well.
All right, thank you, Dr. Nance. Mrs. Marsden or Mr. Worth, are you guys on?
I am.
All right. Do you guys have any
Don't
comments
work.
or questions?
No, I don't have any questions, no.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just add one more thing? So it sounds like some of the programs might cost money, and it'd be great if we had a grant writer to help with that. Just throwing that.
All right, if that's all that everybody's got for Dr. Nance, I think we can adjourn from our study session and take a 5-minute break, and we'll come back and start our normal business. Thank you, everybody.